across the developed world. My guest today was for years a big player in the global oil industry. John Hofmeister retired as the president of Shell's American business. Now he says he's ready to talk straight about the world's looming energy crisis. Is big oil part of the solution or the problem? John Hofmeister in New York City. Welcome to Hard Talk.
Thanks for having me, Stephen.
I want to begin with something very interesting you wrote about the oil industry. You said, I've had a love-hate relationship with the oil industry. The love element I can understand. You were very successful. You ended up as president of Shell United States. The hate thing, I'm struggling with. Why did you end up hating it as well?
In my 35-year corporate career, I spent 25 years in energy-consuming businesses, companies like GE, Allied Signal, Nortel, and we were always fighting the volatility, the vagaries, the uncertainties of the energy supply side. And running a business as an energy consumer taught me many lessons about the oil and gas industry, the electric utilities, and not all of those lessons were pleasant.
What were the unpleasant ones?
Well, it was particularly in relating to the human side of the oil and gas industry. I did not find the human side very receptive to the kinds of issues and concerns that an energy consumer would bring. It was obviously very technical, very high-risk oriented kinds of companies, but in terms of their outreach, their marketing approach, their sensitivity to their customers, there was a lot went missing.
Well, I want to talk about the mindset issues in a moment. Before we do, I was very struck with a timing coincidence. It was in 2006 when you were the boss of Shell in America that George W. Bush in his State of the Union address said, quote, America is addicted to oil. Now, addiction is a problem. Addiction is something that needs dealing with. Did you, when you were boss of Shell US, agree with George W. Bush?
No, I took exception to the word addiction because the U.S. has embraced, not addicted, it has embraced voluntarily, and it can walk away from voluntarily the condition under which we use enormous amounts of crude oil. We're using 20 million barrels a day in the United States, 10,000 gallons a second. That's a lot of oil, and we like it, and we like the lifestyle that it brings. I don't see it as an addiction, because the U.S. is always interested in what's the next technology. And so there's tremendous enthusiasm now for the next technology of personal mobility. Great amount of investment going on with biofuels these days, which could replace
before we get to the new technologies, let's stick with the old ones. We, for the moment, are stuck with the internal combustion engine. And I just wonder, if you're not calling it an addiction, why you think it is so important that oil remains affordable. As I understand your view of the energy industry now, you say that, oil exploitation must continue because we have to keep our energy affordable. Why? If there isn't this addiction and you believe that we can move away from oil, why not let the price rise and allow other technologies to take over?
Unlike Europe, where low-income or fixed-income people have access to public mobile transportation, in the U.S., we really have not invested for nearly, more than half a century in public transportation. And so it becomes a social equity issue. It's a social harmony issue. If we don't have affordable energy in the U.S., we have civil disagreement on what is the proper role for energy and mobility and lifestyle. And I don't see any of the municipalities, any of the states or the federal government getting involved in mass transportation.
You are, as a former president of Shell, very well aware of the costs that come with oil, costs that everybody is now thinking of because of what has happened to BP and the Deepwater Horizon well in the Gulf of Mexico, but also, of course, because of the wider issue of climate change.
Well, I think there are many social and environmental costs which have never been priced into oil, and the question of whether we do change public policy to price them into oil is an open and a fair question. On the other hand, there are vast quantities of oil yet to be developed, yet to be discovered around the world, including the unconventional forms of energy, such as oil sands, oil shale, heavy oil, whatever you want to call it. There's no dearth, there's no shortage of oil in the world. It's a question of, do we choose to stay with this technology, the internal combustion engine? If so, I'm arguing it has to be affordable. Or do we shift gears and move to another form of technology, which itself will have to be affordable, unless the U.S. changes the way it provides for public transportation?
But why should we trust, even if for the moment we are stuck with this internal combustion engine, why should we trust the major oil companies to continue the effort of oil production exploration in a responsible way?
Well, I would argue that by and large, over the history of the last, say, 50, 60 years, the industry has become increasingly socially responsible as well as technically capable of doing what it does. The Gulf of Mexico is a perfect example of 40 years of drilling offshore, more than 35,000 wells. This BP Deepwater Horizon incident is the first such and only such incident in the American Gulf. And we have to take the lessons learned from this to figure out what actually went wrong. I submit they were human factors, which cannot be regulated. They were bad judgments, poor decision-making, which can't be regulated. And let's learn from that to see what do we have to do to make sure we have the right training, the right capability and qualifications on rigs when decisions get made that could impact the environment or people's lives.
I'm surprised you say it's a one-off, and I'm surprised you suggest there should be such trust lent to big oil when you yourself have written that, and I'm quoting you now, many energy companies choose to tell a guarded version of the truth. That suggests to me that we should be very, very careful about trusting big oil.
Well, I think we have to discern those who are forthcoming, those who are transparent, because there are many who are, and those who are not. And I write about those who are not because my experience was, in my previous employer, that the transparency and the forthcomingness was, in fact, honest during the high gas prices of my experience as president.
Are you sure, John Hofmeister?